hello to my neighbors and friends in Pleasant Ridge. I am Ralph Castelli. I've had the pleasure of being the mayor of Pleasant Ridge for several years. And I'm here tonight as the spokesman for the City Commission, following up on a flyer that was distributed citywide by the city manager discussing the thinking behind a proposal to combine a city department with that of a neighboring community. That being to take our police department and combine it with the Berkeley Public Service Department to have one combined public service department. The goal is to provide quality services equal or greater to those that we provide today within budget, which is, as everyone knows, an ever-challenging task. Our latest endeavor, merging these two departments, has been under review for 5 years or more. It is only because other communities have been reluctant to enter into such partnerships that actual action items have not taken place until this recent year. Our budget is no different than any other city budget in the state of Michigan. We are challenged by declining tax base. We are challenged by declining state shared revenue. Essentially, we lost $1 million in state shared revenue over the last 10 years. And the little bit that is left is now set for competition among cities, dependent upon the efforts they make and the success of the efforts that they make in combining city services and reducing costs. I want to make a couple other things very clear. We have been sharing information regarding discussions with both Berkeley and Huntington Woods about public safety with the elected officials, the administration, and the fire chief of the city of Ferndale. This has been no secret to them for a number of years. We've been keeping them abreast of developments as they occur. Now tonight with me, I'd like to introduce two newcomers and one face that's been with us for some time. First, the senior face, City Manager Sherry Ball, and then to my left, Public Safety Director Rick Eschman and Deputy Director Bob North. Welcome. Why are we considering public safety at this point in time? A lot of people are framing this as being purely a fire protection issue or an emergency medical type issue, but it's also a very serious police issue. With budget cuts over the last few years, we have had to discontinue our 2 part-time police officers. That's the equivalent of losing 1 full-time police officer, which was 1/7 of our department. We've experienced the loss of revenue and at the same time have been putting our police out there in an ever dangerous situation without adequate backup. We feel that the best method of providing safety for the residents of Pleasant Ridge and for our police personnel is to look at a different way of delivering that service. A way that has been used in Huntington Woods for decades, in Berkeley for almost 20 years?
1983.
Since 1983. In Oak Park since before anybody can remember. For the Grosse Pointes, Fraser, and many other cities. In fact, Kalamazoo has recently been complimented as being a model of such a department. But a lot of people don't quite know how a public safety department works compared to a traditional police department or a traditional fire department. And certainly there are questions out there as far as ambulance service and how that would work and how that might differ economically from the situation we have now. So with that, I would ask Director Eschman to describe for us the public safety concept compared to the traditional fire department, police department concept, and Deputy Director North to walk us through a typical response in a fire situation by public safety officers.
As opposed to the traditionally split departments, the public safety model trains and certifies all personnel in both fire and police. They receive state certification as both. On a daily basis, they function as police officers until such time as a fire would occur. Fire call goes out, and they would respond to the fire location in their police vehicles and have their fire gear and equipment in the truck.
And Deputy Director North, what happens, what transpires from that point forward?
Well, of course, if we back up a quick second, the call comes into dispatch. The proper information is gained. Immediately, the officer who's in the station gets on the truck and responds to the location. And at the same time this is taking place, the scout cars or the officers in the patrol vehicles are dispatched to the location. They get to the scene prior to the arrival of the truck, while the truck is en route. They determine the extent of the fire, they do a scene assessment, they can prepare the hydrant for use upon arrival of the truck if that's necessary. First and foremost, of course, is are there any life safety or injury issues to be dealt with? All these things are done prior to the arrival of the equipment.
And I understand from earlier conversations that in an instance in Berkeley, I won't punt this one to Deputy Director North because he won't want to talk to himself, but I understand, Chief, that once Deputy Director North went into a fire as the first responder and rescued the homeowner before the fire truck would have an opportunity to arrive.
Yes. About a year and a half ago, there was a fire on Edgewood Street, a residential fire. Deputy Chief North was in his police car about a block away when the call came out. Responded immediately to the scene. The fire was fully involved, interior fire. The woman was unconscious from it inside the home. Deputy Chief North advised dispatch what he had, and realizing that time was of the essence, he entered the fire, rescued the woman, carried her out, and had her on the front lawn, and was doing resuscitation at the time that the truck pulled up.
And correspondingly, Berkeley's had a fairly recent incident whereby during one of your races, a contestant collapsed, and it was a public safety officer that revived that person from a heart attack as opposed to somebody from the ambulance. Is that the situation?
Yes, about a month ago, two of our officers were at a race in a police car. They had the AED equipment with them. The man suffered a heart attack. They applied the equipment and brought him back again before any other assistance would arrive.
And Sherry, we already have the AEDs in our cars, is that correct?
Yes, we already do. All cars are equipped.
But Chief, Deputy Chief, the training that our officers would have in the public safety concept, as I understand it, would exceed the amount of training they have today in those medical emergency responses. How does that differ?
The medical first responder is just below the level of basic EMT. So you would be able to apply oxygen to individuals. You would have a far more extensive kit to provide for various types of injuries. Also, obviously, the defibrillator. And we have that equipment in each police car right now, as well as on the engines. So this equipment is available at all times to all personnel on duty for the benefit of our citizens.
So again, a stronger police department, not only from the standpoint of fighting crime, but when they're first on the scene in a medical emergency, they would have greater training than our officers would have today.
That is correct.
Deputy Director North, could you walk us through what the response might be in a typical medical situation or a typical fire situation?
Well, in our model on medical response, persons, of course, call the station, and we, of course, dispatch for ourselves, Huntington Woods and Pleasant Ridge, and have done it for you as a service that you would use for several years now.
Since 2003.
2003. And a medical call comes in, we immediately dispatch two cars at the same time we're notifying our ambulance company. If it's necessary for additional medical intervention while we're en route, we can simply switch them to the dispatch from the ambulance company or to poison control. All these things are happening simultaneously. Two officers will arrive at the scene. We are equipped with defibrillators, oxygen, medical first responder bag, bandages, and the like. And we can do the scene assessment, determine the condition of the patient, scene security. Is there a dog that has to be secured? Do we have an overexcited relative? Is there a second medical victim? Is there furniture to be moved? Where are the medications? Are there any allergies? We can provide all of this in our town right now. We're talking just a couple, 3 minutes average response time. while the ambulance is en route. So we are, as the chief alluded to with the fire response, we're putting people on scene relatively now. And we're providing all the additional immediate information that normally would have to wait for the arrival of a truck or an ambulance under normal circumstances.
Now, as I understand it from our earlier conversations, the location of the ambulances, it's not a static location for which ambulances come. It's a roving location with the ambulance company charting out the best places to be depending upon what the history has shown. Is that basically how
That
it
is
works?
correct. Right now, one of the stations that they utilize is 696 and 10 Mile. They utilize
696 in Coolidge.
696 in Coolidge, I'm sorry. But they use those geographic locations depending upon workload. They use computer models to determine the times of day, the peaks, the necessities that come up. So they're constantly tracking what the needs of their service area are. And if a unit in a certain area is called away, sent to dispatch, the others shift geographically so as to provide constant coverage. There's always somebody else in the slot coming up.
And then Sherry, I know one of the questions that I've heard is that if we were to make this change and we were no longer being provided with ambulance service as part of our fire contract, that now citizens will get a bill for the ambulance service, and yet my understanding is they're getting a bill today for the ambulance service. Isn't that the case?
That is the case, that's true. So I think many people who are concerned about this perhaps have never had to use the service of the ambulance, but residents who are in need of an ambulance, they receive service, are transported, they will receive a bill as well today under our current contract as they would under the one with Alliance.
And my understanding is that the last numbers you saw, for instance, there were some $300,000 in revenue to the Ferndale Fire Department for ambulance service paid either by insurance companies or individuals.
Yes, that was the number provided to us by the city of Ferndale.
And then let's talk about police calls. Presently, if we have a police call, sometimes we have 2 officers on duty. Amy does her best to schedule that when she can, but those are the great minority of the hours. So if an officer gets a call for a domestic dispute, which is a layman, I understand to be one of the more difficult and dangerous situations you folks go into. He's going to the door alone. How would that work if this type of arrangement were arrived at?
Well, under the public safety model that we utilize, of course, everyone does both. So instead of having a certain number of police officers, a certain number of firefighters, you've got additional police officers available on the road. So as we respond to something of a domestic violence nature, okay, which is not uncommon, everybody has them, you're going to send at least 2 officers and possibly a supervisor, depending upon the nature of the call. And of course, the information is obtained as best as possible at dispatch, and the number of calls and the type of response are according to the information received, and also any history at the house, if we had any prior contacts. All these things take place very fluidly in a very simultaneous fashion. So we're not sending, one officer will not be going alone on a domestic violence call.
And then again, if an officer, oftentimes our only officer, were on a given call and another call came in, that would then give us the ability to slide another officer down from Berkeley to cover the second call.
This is an operational thing that would be handled at the shift level on direction from us, so that there's a constant fluid rotation of personnel as needed. If only 1 officer is needed, there's going to be 1 officer down here anyway, or 2 maybe even available. And if we need more than that, we'll shift more. This is the business that we do. We keep things available, we keep things fluid, we commit the necessary resources as needed by the people who are in need of our services. This is our profession.
Chief Esprin, we've had many conversations within the city about how much pride we take in our independent police department. And obviously, in any combined group, there can only be 1 chief. But in 2 cities, there are 2 city managers. And in the discussions to date, what we have talked about would be a situation whereby you would respond to the Berkeley city manager as to operations in Berkeley and take direction from her. But correspondingly, as to the city of Pleasant Ridge, you would report to and take instructions and direction from the Pleasant Ridge city manager. Do you see any problems in that?
Not at all. I have dealt with the Pleasant Ridge city manager for years. We have no problems in that area. As you indicated, I would simply respond to the Berkeley city manager on Berkeley issues and the Pleasant Ridge city manager on Pleasant Ridge issues.
And since we've had the dispatch contract in place for now some 8 years, and together with dispatch comes lockup, our officers and your officers have been used to working with each other for that period of time. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And have there been any issues there that you're aware of?
No problems that I'm aware of.
A lot of times I've been asked over the years, well, how big is your police department? And I've always responded, I can't tell you because I'd have to kill you. Because quite frankly, I didn't want the size of our police department to be out there in the press. But with this issue, we have the opportunity to look at a system that will dramatically increase the size of our police department to 32 officers cross-trained for all types of emergency response. Deputy Director North, can you amplify that, how that might work, and the advantages of that type of system?
Well, the advantage of that is when you have people arriving on a scene, you're arriving there in short order, ready to either assess or handle a great number of emergencies prior to the arrival of heavier equipment. The advantage of that also is should there be, for lack of a better term right now, an increase in a certain amount of crimes, we would have more resources available to put at that problem.
We don't have an undercover unit. Do you have detectives?
We have an investigative staff. We also have some personnel that are quite capable of doing plainclothes operations as the need sees fit.
Now also in prior conversations, again, shifting back and forth between police and fire, my understanding is that oftentimes people criticize a public safety department as being just a bunch of police officers trained to be firemen, cross-trained to be firemen. I understand that your next hire and then hopefully your hire after that is the opposite of that.
That is correct. All of our officers have attended the fire academies and met the requirements of the state of Michigan to be firefighters. Our next firefighter, or next hire that we're going to have is currently a deputy chief in a fire department north of here with many fires in his experience. He has also graduated recently at Police Academy. We are always looking at selection of personnel to provide the best capable people that we can to provide for our citizens. And in the case of what we're talking about here between Berkeley and Pleasant Ridge, all of the citizens, because they're all ours now. We'll take ownership and protect all of our people. That's what we do.
Now talk to me about the constant training, because it isn't sending somebody off to fire school or sending somebody off to the police academy and then they don't refresh for the rest of their career. And I know that you actually have your units go down to Highland Park for some training.
That is correct. We have opportunities there where we actually did a bariatric removal drill where we actually created with Alliance Mobile Health a simulated person in excess of about 350 pounds that was assembled inside of a room of a vacant home that was scheduled for demolition. And it was assembled at that size so it would not fit through the door. So we had to actually breach walls, we had to simulate terminating utilities, breaching walls, actually using tools and removing this person along with Alliance, who were doing the medical end of it. So we had actual hands-on physical practice like we would have to do in a real scenario. In addition to that type of training, we also have to keep up our medical first responder continuing ed credits, which is provided for us by Alliance Mobile Health. We also send people to various police schools, and we do a considerable amount of in-service training, including the pistol range, which is in our building. We have constant training going on all the time, and we are able to schedule it in cooperation with the union so that it's at minimal cost to the department.
And at the same time, in a larger department, I assume it's easier to find the time for people to train than in a department the size of ours, where we have a hard enough time keeping people on the road.
But that certainly makes it easier when you have greater numbers. You're able to shift some manpower. Like I said, we have an agreement with the union about moving of leave days so that we can get some things done.
Let's talk about it from Berkeley's perspective. We're talking about going from a department of 6 to a department of 32 or 33, and correspondingly you go from a department of 27 to 32, 33. How does that help Berkeley?
Well, that helps us immensely. It provides us the opportunity to reschedule shifts, to balance manpower to times that are busier, days that are busier. It just provides more flexibility in staffing.
And then in our conversations, we've talked about, especially the initial phase of any type of mutual arrangement, where your officers would have shifts here and our officers would have shifts in Berkeley, so that each can learn the streets and the people of each city. How do you see that working?
Absolutely. What we plan to do initially is assign the current Pleasant Ridge officers to squads so that they would be on patrol here. As time would permit, our people would come down, ride with them, answer their radio runs, and familiarize themselves with the city, both from a police standpoint and a fire standpoint. To know where the businesses are, to know the routes to take, just a myriad of things that they need to know. So that transition time would be available to us, and then your officers likewise would be assigned to Berkeley at times.
Deputy Director North, one of the questions that's out there is that are the firefighters that are on the ambulance better trained than the people who respond from Alliance?
Everyone in the state of Michigan that's a basic EMT, advanced life support, also commonly known as paramedic, or critical care, which is a step above the ALS or the paramedic. Everyone has to meet the same state of Michigan requirements.
So you're confident that the people who are servicing the city of Berkeley are every bit as qualified as the people currently servicing the city of Pleasant Ridge?
Yes, everyone has to meet the same certifications.
And sure, am I right that a substantial number of the calls that come in presently are served by Alliance and other private contractors as we sit here today?
That is true. Often, in the old days when we had a full-time dispatch here, we would be notified that the EMS was out of service in Ferndale, or if they're on another call, or whatever the reason may be, Alliance often responds to our medical calls now.
Sure, another question that's been out there is, will the Pleasant Ridge Police Station remain open? Now, as we sit here today, it's only open 4 days a week.
That's right, and we don't expect any change in the operation of the Pleasant Ridge Police Department than what it is currently. It would be open Monday through Thursday from 8 until 5 p.m. and that would stay the same. It would be manned the same way it is right now. I mean, there are times when the officer or the chief are out on a call and City Hall is open and can respond, but there would be no difference in what residents see today.
Other than being a different method of delivering city services, how do you see the quality of service being delivered if this type of partnership went through?
I think the residents would not notice much difference other than the fact everyone can appreciate the fact that there would be more police officers and firefighters on the road at any given moment. The reason that we looked at this model, and besides having already established a strong partnership with the city of Berkeley and the officers knowing each other and the area too, is the very idea that this will allow us to strengthen our police department and put away some of the worries that the city has had about some of the calls that our officers respond to. So if anything, I would think residents will see an improvement, but as far as the operation goes, when they call for an emergency or if they call for service for any reason, they will not notice a difference.
I know from talking to one of the officers the night of the auction that when he was interviewing to come here, that one of the concerns he had was going to the door alone. No backup, as he was accustomed to. And I think that Chief Eschmann has indicated that is a very real risk, and one that this type of approach would eliminate or certainly minimize, but likely eliminate in those types of calls. We hope this video conversation will provide information to the city residents about the city's discussions to date on the topic of forming a combined public safety department with the city of Berkeley. The members of the City Commission take seriously their duty as the elected representatives of the city to make sound decisions for our community. And we are attempting to not only maintain but enhance the services available to our citizens in a fiscally sound basis. We have made changes in the past as far as how services are delivered, and those changes have proved to be beneficial to the city. To date, no decision has been made on this issue, and much needs to be worked out if it goes forward. Residents will be updated on the progress of discussions during the course of those discussions. And anyone is invited to attend the regular City Commission meetings held on the second Tuesday of every month at City Hall at 7:30 p.m. I will note with one exception, and that is the June 14th meeting will be held at the Community Center at 4 Ridge Road. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Sherry, thank you as ever,
Thank you.
and good night.